There. Wonderful. Awesome. All right. Hi, everybody. We were just jamming to some Christmas music today. I was enjoying that. So, thank you, everybody, for joining us for another week of Ask Epic. We meet every week to discuss all things Epic. So, we hope to serve as a resource for new to Epic families, but also our returning families as well. I know myself, I learn something new each week. And so I really love it. My name's Ashley Brown, and I'm from the Epic Development Team. And I'm really excited to be here today with those of you. We've got some great guests today, and I'm really excited to talk more with them here soon. So, if those of you that are hopping on to watch, if you have questions or comments, please drop them in the chat box. And we will get to all of those. And then, if you have anything that maybe you just like some one on one help, or maybe something that's not quite as relevant to today's topic, I'm going to drop my team's department information in the chat, our phone number and our email address. And if you want to reach out to us via email or call us, someone from my team will be happy to help you. So I'll get that added here in just a second. But today we are going to be discussing the ACT and how students at Epic prepare for this test. And so we're joined by Megan, Lindsay, and Carrie. They're going to give us some more information. So, hi, ladies, and thank you so much for joining us today. Um, okay, so to get started, this is usually Carla's department, but she's not here today. So I'm going to take over the tips with Carla. So it's tips with Ashley today. But we like to begin every webinar with the tip for success at Epic. So we like to ask our guests just to share something that they would recommend for families that are new to Epic, or again, even returning families, to help them find success. So let's see. We'll start with who's at the top of my list. Carrie, do you want to tell us your tip this week?
Sure. Well, in the spirit of test prep season coming up and talking about ACT prep, I thought I would throw out a tip. I'm a math coach. So for me, knowing what resources are available to your student for the tests that they are going to take, and then having those resources available to them for them to use and practice using this second semester is really key to their success. So for example, our 6th through 8th graders get a specific calculator on their math test, and our high school students do as well. There's actually free version available online that looks exactly like the one that's going to be on the test. It's Desmos, Desmos. If they practice using that while they're doing their math, they're going to be much more comfortable using it, and it's not going to be so scary. Also, things as simple as just practice using a blank piece of paper and a pencil when you're doing your problems, because that's what they get when they go in to take the state test. So it's not so confusing to them, and it just becomes part of their routine.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah, I know that's something when I was teaching, I remember doing with our students was practicing how to use the little calculator on the computer, because those are things that you don't necessarily think about. But those, the student may know how to do the work, but they see something that they're not used to and they go, "Whoa, wait a minute," especially the little. So I think that's a great tip. Thank you, Carrie. Okay, next I have Lindsay. Lindsay, can I hear a tip from you?
Yes. So when I was thinking about a success tip for this particular session, since we're talking about ACT prep, I thought it a really good idea to reinforce the importance of the EPIC triangle when we're talking about success of high school students. And that is, going back to our ILP meetings when we initially meet with our families and teachers, we talk about the triangle and how the student is at the top and the parents and teachers work together to support that student and their success. And it's really important to remember that there are 3 points to that triangle because we think, okay, you're in high school now, you can handle a little more independence, you can make decisions for yourself. But high schoolers still have developing brains. And because of the hormonal roller coaster that they're on at that time in their lives, their decision making can actually be a little bit more impaired than even when you're comparing a child at the age of 16 versus the decisions that they made when they were 10. They might be more impulsive. They might be a little more lackadaisical about their schooling and things like that. So it's really important that that triangle remain in place. Yes, students can be capable of being more independent, but they're still going to need mom, dad, a caregiver, and their teacher to help them make good decisions as they go through these last few years of school before they become adults and go out into the wide world.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's so important. I love that you brought up the triangle. We talk about it every year at the beginning of the school year, and you're right. Our goal is by the time students graduate high school that they're a true independent learner. They've taken ownership, but there's a lot of training that goes into that, and it's not going to happen unless the caregiver and the teacher are all working together with that student. That's great. Okay, last but not least, Megan, can you tell us a tip?
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off of these girls, and mine's gonna line in with ACT prep just a little bit. So as you are working through any problem, ACT prep or anything, learn to be comfortable with making mistakes. You will learn more and grow more when you make mistakes, and then you go back and you find your errors and correct them. Then it just sticks a little bit better. So that doesn't just apply to ACT prep. That applies to all school. It applies to adulthood. I feel like most definitely I have learned more by making mistakes and growing from them than just getting it right every time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so much, a failure is not, making a mistake or not getting it right the first time. That's not a failure. That's just an opportunity to learn and grow. I love that. Okay, well, thank you so much. Well, let's dive in. So, talking about the ACT today, and a lot of the times when we start talking about the ACT, that is really daunting for our students. It sounds like a really big, scary test. So it's daunting for students and their families. And Epic wants to try and relieve some of that anxiety by making it more manageable. The preparation for a big test like this, they want to make it more manageable by offering a strategic plan that lasts all through their high school career to get them ready. And we know not everybody's going into higher education after high school, but the fact is, every student in Oklahoma is required to take the ACT to graduate. So if you've got to do it, let's do it right. Let's come in prepared and let's find success. Because we know that maybe you don't want to go to want to go to college right now, but it could be that in 2 years your plans change and you realize you do want to go. And how helpful would it be to have these strong test taking skills in your back pocket and hopefully a great ACT score to fall back on. So we're going to talk today with Carrie and Lindsay and Megan. They're going to give us a little bit of background on what EPIC's plan is to get students prepared for the ACT, and then give us a little extra help for those that want to go the extra mile. We're going to talk a little bit about that as well. So Megan, I'm going to start with you. Can you tell us what is the required ACT test prep that EPIC students complete?
For sure. It is broken into three parts. So our freshmen are going to work on their math skills in ALEX. It's a program that we have that Carrie oversees. And then our 10th graders are going to work in No Red Ink to work on those ELA skills, because on the ACT, we have not only the English section and the reading section, but we also have a writing section. So there's a whole bunch that comes from that ELA department. And then so that's for our sophomores. And then our juniors, they are going to start their work in Magoosh, which is an ACT prep program. It's mocks the ACT, like the style of questions, it has the timing element, and it has the strategies involved with it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So yeah, so they start their freshman year and they go sophomore year, then junior year. They have required supplements that they work in to get ready for that ACT. Could you tell me these supplements that they're required to work in, does the cost of those come out of their learning fund?
No, Epic covers those costs. It's covered through just Epic and then grant funds that we have. And so those are free of charge for those specific grade bands. So our freshmen automatically get ALEX, and our sophomores get No Red Ink, and then our juniors all get Magoosh.
Great. Love to hear it. Anything to save that learning fund money. So why does Epic set it up this way where they spend several years working on test prep? A lot of times when they're younger and a lot of other test prep, it's just that one school year. So why do Epic students spend 3 years getting ready?
So really what we're doing is we're laying strong foundations. So we're starting right there with our freshmen and their math skills. Math changes when we get into high school. So we need to make sure that our foundational skills that we're going to have to use over and over as we progress through math is really solid. So, and we don't want to cram all that into just one spot. We really want to pace it out. And then as our kids get into their sophomore year, which is where our ELA focus is, they're able to express themselves in a better way, and we want to enhance that and encourage it. So that's why we built that into that sophomore year. And then, of course, that junior year, you should have your nice foundation of math and your nice foundation of ELA, and then we'll go ahead and put it into practice for Magoosh and the ACT type questions.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, you can never be too prepared for your test, right? It's just great, and it's a lot. I guess a lot less scary to think about versus, it's like I was always a procrastinator in school, and if I'd wait till the night before to start cramming for the test, really stressful. Do not recommend. So yeah, the sooner you can start getting ready, it's a lot more manageable, and you can accomplish a lot more. Okay, so Carrie, I know that recently you were on a webinar with us and you actually talked to us about Alex Math, but we were talking about it in the context of being a paid supplement that students could get in addition to their normal work. But can you tell us how that differs from the ACT prep that students use Alex for?
Yeah, well, I would say, first of all, the number one difference is just what we talked about. ACT prep is provided for free, whereas Alex as a supplement for math course is a paid supplement that you'd have to pay to use. And then another main difference would be that when we're using Alex as a paid supplement for a math course, it's to help us learn those math concepts for that grade in that math course. Whereas our ACT prep Alex course, that's a standalone elective high school credit. So it's not considered a math course. It's considered an elective course because our goal with our ACT prep is not necessarily that students have to learn this specific list of things. It's that they grow from where they currently are at. So we want to find out where their base knowledge is with math, and then we want them to continue to start growing through repeated constant practice throughout the year. And so Alex is the perfect program for that because it is adaptive. So the kids will start and they'll take a knowledge check, just like we were talking about with the supplement, and it will place them into topics that it believes that the student is ready to learn. And the really neat thing that we talked about with Alex is that it actually is an adaptive program that uses artificial intelligence. It's one of the first of its kind. So what it does is literally based on every single answer that the student puts in, it will continually analyze where the student is at and adjust what it's offering to the student based on the student's knowledge so that students are able to actually really grow from where they're at and to learn what they need to learn to get ready for that ACT prep. Alex, for ACT prep, we're asking students to do 10 topics per week, each week of the semester. So it's not really something that we're wanting to just cram all into a couple of weeks and get it over with. It's really something that we're wanting them to take the time to work in it for a couple of hours each week to go ahead and allow that AI to do what it does and adjust, and for the kids to learn and for things to go to progress as we want them to. So 10 topics per week each semester is their only requirement, and it really is a completion grade. If they do their 10 topics, they learn 10 topics, it could be any 10 topics that they're ready for, then they're going to get that completion grade. And the great news for that is that's a great way to have an amazing grade for a high schooler's transcript to help them out.
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, we're not going to fault a student because they're struggling in math. The whole point of this exercise is just to get them the practice and the additional teaching that they might need to get caught up. So I think that's great. And yeah, so 10 topics a week. And so how long, and sorry if you said this, roughly how much time each week do you think that works out to be?
So it's going to depend on the student and which topics, but typically I see that range between 2 to 3 hours a week.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And so, yeah, those of you that are watching, if you have questions about any of these programs we're talking about, I would love to hear them and we can address them with the experts while we have them. So please drop your questions if you have it in the chat box. But okay, I want to switch gears and move over to Lindsay now. Lindsay, could you tell us about how students are using No Red Ink for ACT test prep?
So the way that ACT prep is set up in No Red Ink is really helpful. And this kind of goes along with what we discussed when I was here to talk about No Red Ink as a paid supplement for grades 3 through 8. But the first thing that students do when they go into No Red Ink is that they complete an interest inventory. So all of the practice questions then generated are going to be geared around the student's interests. So as an example, I have 3 poodles, and I really love children's literature like Charlotte's Web, Laura Ingalls Wilder, Little Women. So those are the kind of interests that I put in on my interest inventory when I first logged into No Red Ink. And so anytime that I go into a sample lesson to show teachers or to give a demonstration, those are the kinds of characters that populate my questions. So it's just a really neat way to enjoy the program. And I think that centering it on student interests really helps keeps kids engaged with the program. Now, another way from an instructional standpoint that No Red Ink is really helpful for students is that the ACT prep portion is organized from heavily tested standards to lightly tested standards. So we really hit the heavily tested standards hard in the first semester. And then as the year goes on, we move into moderately and lightly tested standards. So this feels like a very efficient way of making sure that the most attention is given to the most important standards. I also, to combine the grammar aspects of ELA with the writing aspects, I spaced out writing assignments throughout the year when I created the pacing guide. So you'll have a pretty standard week where you're doing practice assignments and then a quiz. And then there will be a week where you are concentrating on writing. So you're learning about those different skill sets, and then you're putting that into work by producing an essay. So, in all, it's a good combination of different ELA skills, and it's giving you a chance to practice things in a very like relaxed manner. Like you don't have to think about writing, 10 essays all at once. It's throughout the year. So you can kind of breathe in between those writing assignments, because I know writing can be really stressful. And then also to, break up the monotony of practice quizzes, then you get some writing assignments sprinkled in there.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think that's such a great point. I don't know, maybe if you're not familiar with the ACT, you don't realize, but there is the testing portion, like the question and answer portion of the ACT for ELA, but there is also a writing portion where students have to write an essay right there on the spot. And so it's so important that students get that practice. But again, it's always like, I know for me, when I'm staring at a blank page, I'm just like, oh my goodness, getting started is tough. But I like what you said about how you tried to space it out. Some of it's question answer, some practice, and then one week you're going to focus on writing. So you're not getting like weeks in a row of writing essays, because that's not my favorite thing to have to do every week. I love that. Okay, could you tell us about like requirements for how often they're expected to use No Red Ink?
So this is another way that No Red Ink can really help students who need differentiation. You can design, like you can use the pacing guide exactly as it's set up. Or if you need to have a different structure, there are alternatives. Now, I would say that time wise, it's very similar to what Carrie indicated. 2 to 3 hours a week is probably what the average student is engaging for. But so, for instance, if you have a student who is in No Red Ink for test prep and they are experiencing a lot of struggles, then that is a cue to talk to the teacher and see, like, maybe we need to shorten the assignments a little bit. Maybe we need to see if there's some other way that we can enhance the process. Like, one thing that I suggest to a lot of students, you have an option to open up the lesson and open it into another tab so you can refer to it. If kids don't know to do that, they might just be trying to just really like take a test right from the get-go almost. Like they're not using the instructional material to help them get through the practice. Once kids know you do that, they usually go a lot faster because they've got that reminder with them as they're working. So there are a few levers you can pull to differentiate, but really the average is about 2 to 3 hours a week.
Okay. And so for No Red Ink, they just have a pacing guide that they can see. Can they see it within the program itself? They can see what's due that week?
Yeah, so some teachers will build out the entire semester.
Mhm.
The pacing guide that I built is actually a spreadsheet that teachers reference, so it's separate from the program itself. But some teachers do just a few assignments at a time, so they don't overwhelm students by seeing, you've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Others decide to build their semester from the get go. And so students can kind of, pace themselves accordingly, so in the same manner that we can with a lot of our other programs, if they know that they have a vacation coming up with family, they might think, well, okay, so for the next couple of weeks, I'm going to try to do, a little bit more so that I can take that week off and not worry about it.
Awesome. I love that. Okay, great. That's awesome. Okay, so we've talked about freshman year, we're doing extra prep on our math skills. Sophomore year, we're doing extra work on our ELA skills and our writing skills. And then we come to junior year, and that's when we're going to work on Magoosh. So, Megan, can you tell us a little bit more about Magoosh and how it's used for ACT test prep?
For sure. So the Magoosh platform was chosen by Epic because it mimics it as close as possible mimics that ACT. And even when a kid is just in there practicing questions, it's going to use a timing element to show them how long it takes them to answer a question because the ACT is timed, and that's very different than all of the tests that they had taken beforehand. When you're third through eighth grade, you have time to take your test. Well, then at the ACT, the math section in particular, you've got 60 math questions in 60 minutes. So that's like a minute per problem, and some of them get more complex. So the timing element is really something that will throw kids off. And so we need them to practice that. When a student logs into Magoosh, like the very first time they log in, there's a practice test section. They don't have to do the whole 3 hours and 45 minutes at one time. They can break it up section by section, but it's good practice to go in and make sure that that's done, because then Magoosh will populate weak areas that the student can focus on. So that's a really great tool that we have there for Magoosh.
Awesome. So it sounds like it's not so much doing content work, like you're not necessarily trying to focus on math or ELA, really just getting those test taking skills, like you said, getting the timing right, knowing I know sometimes you kind of have to do some process of elimination where you say that question, I might need to come back to it later. So I think that's great. That's something that I know myself when I first got into teaching, it was kind of a shock to me. Like you have to teach somebody how to take these types of tests. It's not like your typical classwork. So, okay. And then could you tell me a little bit about I don't think we've talked about this, the timing requirements, or what are the like required things that they're expected to do in Magoosh each week?
So for 11th graders, we went off of what the recommendation is for the ACT, and the ACT recommends 20 minutes per day, like practicing throughout that junior year, will help increase a student's, success rate on the ACT. So we went with 16 to 20 minutes per, just to kind of give a little leeway, because some kids answer questions faster than the other ones. The great thing about, so we are asking the 16, 20 minutes per day, which then at the end of the week, that's 80 to 100 minutes. That's what gives you your time for the week. But there's different ways that you can go about getting it. The teachers can build out assignments. So similar to the No Red Ink, where there's a set pacing guide that I created that teachers have access to, and they can know what assignments to put in. Similarly to Lindsay, I went ahead and did, the ones that are going to be heavily tested. We want to make sure that we've got those down. For our English section, commas are 20 of the 75 questions. So knowing commas is a pretty important thing. So that's how that's all kind of broken down in that pacing guide. However, Magoosh, like these other platforms, it can take what the student practices on and attempts to do, and then determine what the student needs help on, and it will give them tips of like, hey, you need to work on fractions, you might want to consider working on equations, those kinds of things. And on top of just the ACT timing strategies and all of that, Magoosh does build in lessons over the content, because they know, these are junior kids, more often than not, that are going to take this test, and maybe they forgot a little bit about what they learned in geometry, and we need just a little bit of a reminder. So Magoosh also builds out lessons that are from the Magoosh ACT experts about specifically how these questions show up on the ACT, how you approach the questions, and then how you can recall previous knowledge to help solve those problems.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much. Okay. So if you've got questions about any of those platforms, please drop them in the chat so we can get them answered. But so far, up to this point, everything that we've talked about has been the required test prep that Epic has our high school students do. You've got 3 years, three different programs. But, really, it's kind of a starting off point. A lot of times we hear of students that are doing additional test prep on their own. They may ask their teacher, what can I do? Or their parents may set it up. And then we will also hear of students that take the ACT more than once. It's required one time in Oklahoma to graduate in your junior year. But there are students that take it multiple times a school year, all throughout high school. And so, Megan, I was hoping that you could tell us more about why it's in a student's best interest to go the extra mile. Why would they want to take the ACT more than once or do the extra prep?
Yeah, so it really goes back to that timing issue. I'm going to use a kind of a personal story about my daughter. She's okay with it. I've already asked her. But she had been prepping for the ACT, and I think the first time she took it was her spring semester of her freshman year. And she had thought that her timing was good. She was able to do the math questions 1 minute, and I mean she was really good at what she was doing. Well, then she goes in and takes the ACT, and she come out and she was all upset, and I was like, what's the matter? And she said at the end of the math, so the 60 minutes for the 60 math questions, she was only on number 35. And so she was like, that timing, you can practice it and practice it and practice it, but until you're like held to those parameters within a testing site, it's very different. So as they go through and take the test more often, they get more comfortable with that timing element, and it doesn't throw them off so bad.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I saw that. And I mean, I think I experienced it myself and a lot of my friends. The more we took it, the better we got. You just kind of figure it out a little bit more. And there is a lot of strategy to it. And so I think that it's important for students to hear that. And I know, Carrie, we talked the other day and you were telling me a story about your experience that kind of also exemplified why a student would want to take the ACT more than once. Could you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I'm gonna tell on myself a little bit. So when I was in high school, I took the ACT 8 times. Now, I'm not saying that 8 times is like the magic number. It's really quite a lot to take it. But part of the reason for that is studies do show that the more often that you take the ACT, your scores tend to go up each time you take it because of those strategies and the things that Megan was talking about with the timing and this, just getting used to the way that the questions are asked and what's going to be asked of you. And so I was a student that I actually qualified to get into college the first time I took it, my freshman year, which is great, fabulous. But it was like I could have just said, "Oh well, I can get into college, but I'm good. Don't have to take that again." But the more often I took it, the more scholarship money I was offered by universities and the different university options I had available to me. So that first time that I took it, I would not have been able to get into OU, which is where I did end up going to college eventually. But the more often I took it, the better scholarship offers I was able to get. And because I took it 8 times, I actually ended up having about half of my tuition paid for, which I would not have had I not just studied for the ACT and taken. I did it twice a year, my sophomore, junior, and senior year, all 4 years. And so it really was just like some studying and 2 days out of, 2 Saturdays out of my school year. But that made a huge difference in my life in terms of the things I was awarded and not having huge student loans and things like that.
Yeah, I think that's so great. And it's, again, this is something I talked about with college and career readiness recently, but you don't realize when you're going through high school that these decisions you make, whether or not you want to take the test more than once, whether or not you want to study, they have a financial impact on your life. If you can get the scores you need to get, getting your college paid for, even just halfway, even just a quarter, is a life changer. And so it's just something that I would really want to stress if I had a high school student. That would be something I would stress. This is not just a are you a superstar student? This is like a financial thing. Jessica, I see, asked a question, is the ACT paid for through Epic? So the one time you take it as a junior, and y'all might correct me if I'm wrong, but when you take it as a junior, your required time, no cost. But then if you want to take it again, we can pay for that through the Learning Fund. Am I right on that? Okay, awesome. So thank you for your question, Jessica. And we're going to show you a document, and I'll put the link for the directions in the chat here in just a second, Jessica. That's got, like, if you wanted to sign up and have it paid for through the Learning Fund, I've got a sheet of directions for you. So we'll share that here in just a second. Okay, one thing now that you guys are talking about, getting a higher score and all of that, y'all told me something this week that I have not heard. I've been out of the game for too long, called what is it called? Super scoring. So can you tell us, Megan? I think you were going to tell us a little bit about what is the ACT Super Score, and yeah, why do students want to know about that?
Yeah, so a great thing that the ACT started was if you take the test, let's say the 4 to 8 times like Carrie did, they will take the top score from each of those sections to then combine together for a super score, which is like your composite. So how it used to work was whenever you took the test, like that's what you got. So if you went up in your English, but then your math went down, that just stayed. Like that was the score that you got. Now the ACT goes in and it lets you, like, if you, let's say the first time that you took the test, you did really well in like math and science. So you went and you studied for your English and reading. That's really what you focused on, like while you were taking the test. Then the ACT is going to take those scores and combine it together to get your composite, which is a super score.
That one blew my mind when you told me
Yeah.
that. I wish that had been around when I was in high school, because that would have been a game changer. That's amazing that students can do that. And like you said, and we talked about this the other day, but that's where the strategy part comes into it. Because like you just said,
Sure.
you can, say, all right, this time I'm really going to prep super hard on my math section, and I'm going to get the perfect math score that I want. And then the next time I take it, I'm really going to focus on my ELA stuff so that hopefully that score, and then you make this beautiful super score. I mean, that's amazing. Okay, Lynette. Yes, so utilizing ACT super scoring could help you qualify for more scholarships. Yes. I mean, that is amazing. I had no idea that ACT did that now, and that's great. That's got to help so many students. So I love that. Okay, let's see here. So if we have students that, now that we've hopefully convinced all the high schoolers watching that they should be doing extra work for their ACT, because I know we're very convincing. So if we have students that would like some additional support or additional ways to get ready for the ACT prep, I know that EPIC has a workshop coming up. So could you tell us about this workshop and why students should sign up for it?
For sure. So Chad Cargill, he is a native Oklahoman, and he has this whole story that he tells during his workshop about how many times he took the ACT because he was really gunning for that full ride to OSU. So he has went through and really taken the ACT and made it like a game that kids play. Like, I mean, that's how he talks about it. It is a strategy, it is rules, just like you figure out all the rules and strategies, to play in video games. It's the same thing. You just have to have that focus of the ACT. So Chad, it's a 3-hour workshop. Our next one is this Friday, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. If you want to sign up for it, just reach out to your teacher, have them reach out to me, and we can get you signed up so that you can attend it. All of them are virtual for EPIC this year. So you don't have to travel anywhere to go attend. You just join his webinar link. And it's 3 hours, and I get that a lot. Like, ooh, that's 3 hours. The way he talks and his energy and just the way he puts it all, and then he ties in little stories and whatnot. The 3 hours flies by. Like before you know it, it's like, oh my gosh, it's noon, and he has just filled your brain with all the cool strategies to take in the ACT. He's pretty great.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you guys, we have multiple of these throughout the school year. So if they can't make this Friday, there will be more in the future, correct?
Yes, our spring dates are January 12th, February 16th, and March 4th, all from that 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. time slot. And
Wonderful.
just reach out to the teacher and then get you signed up.
Yeah. And with it being virtual, they can have, you don't have to, like you said, rush around to get anywhere. So it's available for everyone. Oh, is there a cost for students to go?
I was like, oh yeah, I need to add that in there. So we have grant funds that have been chosen to pay for the student seats for this workshop this year. It happened last year. We had so much success with it. We went ahead and did it this year again. So it's not going to come out of the Learning Fund. The teacher still has to do the registration and sign up, because we have to just keep track of all of those. But it doesn't come out of the Learning Fund. So you get it to attend for free.
Love it. So yeah, if you have a high school student and they don't have plans this Friday, they do now, because they should definitely be there. Okay, so I know we kind of just talked about this because somebody asked a question about gosh, I don't even remember now signing up for the ACT, like if it's paid for through Epic. So I thought I would touch on that. So for any students that would like to take the ACT outside of the state testing window in their junior year, I've got directions. I just posted it in the chat just about a couple minutes ago. So please click on that. I'm going to just share my screen really quickly and show you guys. Okay. So this is it. So these are the directions for if you want to sign up for the ACT on your own. This is what you'll do. The big thing is that you don't pay for it right up front when you sign up. You then have to go in through SpinBridge for the Learning Fund, and there's all these directions here. My recommendation is, if this is something that you want to do and you're a little bit unsure on the best way to do it, or like if you're following the directions, reach out to your teacher or reach out to the Learning Fund, because I want to make sure that that would get done right so that you could have that paid for by the Learning Fund. So there is that. And like I said, it is in the chat box, but if you lose the link or you don't have it, you can always reach out to anyone in my department. I'm sure the Learning Fund, even your teacher, we can get you this link for these directions. So let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, okay. So kind of the last thing I was going to ask from you ladies today, you guys are a wealth of knowledge. I mean, y'all taught me so much this week in our meeting the other day. I had no idea. So I thought it would be great if we could get one more nugget from each of you. One additional support that would be your recommendation for students that want to go the extra mile when they're getting ready for the ACT. So I was just going to ask, just for one thing from each of you. I'll start with Carrie again.
Sure. So one little thing that you should know is that ACT actually provides a wealth of free information and free resources through their website. I'm actually going to put the link down here so that you can do it. It's called ACT Academy. They have a website where you can get printed practice tests. You can get online practice tests. There are sets of questions that you can go on and do online and have immediately scored, and then it'll give you feedback on tips and tricks for the questions that you missed. They have free webinars that are available with all kinds of different strategies similar to the same types of things that Chad Cargill talks about, although I will say Chad is much more entertaining than they are. But it's just a huge amount of information straight from the source of the people who are creating that test. So that would be my tip, is to go in there, do some of the practice tests, do some of the things that are there to help you get ready.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great recommendation. Practice tests were always my number one go-to when I was studying for the ACT myself. So, okay, Lindsay, let's hear one from you.
I actually have two. The first of
Wonderful.
which is make sure that you're reading a variety of fiction and nonfiction books, especially if they are challenging to you. I think specifically like classical literature is a great way to really strengthen your reading comprehension. And then that way, when you get into the test, you think about all of the different sections, being able to read the questions and understand them, and to be able to parse out like infographics, charts, things of that nature. I mean, it all relates back to reading. So the stronger that you are at reading, the better off your scores are going to be across the board. The second tip is to take advantage of TEL or other concurrent enrollment classes. And this is stemming directly from my own personal experience. The first time I took the ACT, I scored a 21 in the math subsection. And then I took college algebra concurrently. And it was just a different perspective on math. I had the same math teacher all 3 years of high school, and then I took a college algebra class as a senior, and I took the ACT at the end of that semester, and my sub score went up 7 points. So I was I was like, wow, this is so much easier, just from that difference in perspective. So when you have those opportunities, take advantage of them. And we kind of talked about this the other day with regards to the super score. If you're focusing on a specific area, you might want to take a college class in that area to specifically bolster that score. So if you think about it, if you took the ACT 4 times and you kind of geared your concurrent enrollment to fall along those lines, you could have a really great score each semester that you took the ACT at the end of your college class. So that's kind of like 4D level chess right there, but you could do it if you wanted to. And if you think about it, the financial payoff for you in the end would really, really be worth it.
Absolutely. I love that you bring that up. I think that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way about, taking the concurrent enrollment or the TEL courses. It's sometimes just a new perspective. Like, I love what you said. You had the same math teacher all through high school. Maybe something in math wasn't clicking, but getting that information from a new source just presented it in a different way. Maybe it clicked. I mean, that's great. I've never thought about it like that, and I love to hear that. Thank you. So, okay, let's hear Megan, can you tell us your additional tip?
For sure. Mine's geared a little more towards like you might have to ask your teacher about it. So we have a resource that is called ACT Game Day, and when I started my position a couple years ago, every ACT book, I don't know if y'all have seen them, they're thick. They're just these big, huge books. Well, having teachers and students, go through each one of them would be pretty complex. So my pretty much goal that first year was take all that knowledge and compile it into something that is useful and you can understand it, whatever level of the ACT knowledge that you have. And so it's called ACT Game Day. It kind of has like, that game day football feel to it. But it takes each section and it talks specifically about like what content is covered like more frequently. So like I said, there's 20 comma questions. So if you just really hone in on commas, for your English, that's 20 questions that you can feel really solid about and go into the test and tackle those problems first. Then on the math section, of course, the breaking down of that. And then for this reading and science, I talk about how it's more similar. Those two sections are more similar to each other than, typically we want to say that English and reading is similar, but not on the ACT. It's a little bit different. So this whole game day, it's broken down into the different sections, but it talks about just what is the structure of the test, how you can go through, and by knowing the structure, it will help support you in answering the questions, knowing what they're looking for, knowing the types of answers that they're really calling out. Because most people don't think that the English and math section are going to be more alike, but the English section is about English rules, and then we all know that math is all about math rules. So they put those two close together because that's what they're looking for. So I would say reach out to your teacher and ask about game day. See if you can get your hands on those resources because they're really good.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Yeah, so please, if that's something you'd be interested in, you have to get that from your teacher, but it's available to all Epic teachers. Anybody can use it. So I love that. I think that's really great. Okay, so today we did a deep dive on the strategies that Epic is using to prepare our students for the ACT. So we start with students their first year of high school. We utilize various platforms and resources, and with the goal of cultivating these test taking skills early on, and also finding those areas where they might need additional assistance so that if you've got 3 years of prep time, that should be plenty of time to kind of bolster up those things that, might need a little extra work. And so by using this proactive approach, we can build confidence, which is ultimately going to contribute to a positive outcome when they take the ACT, and teach them about, there's more to taking these tests than just getting a high score so you can go to college. There's a lot of these skills that are transferable into the career field someday. So regardless of which direction a student is going, we are just really thankful for the continued dedication of EPIC and this team specifically to help students and their commitment to helping them reach their full potential. So thank you guys. I appreciate you, Megan and Lindsay and Carrie, for joining us today. It was great to talk to you. I swear I learned a ton today. So I loved that. I hope that those of you watching learned a lot as well. If you had to join late and you didn't get to see all of it, we always post the recordings on our EPIC website. So if you go to our website and you click about and then FAQ, they're all right there and it'll link to our YouTube channel and there's a lot of good stuff there. So thank you again, ladies, for joining us. If you're watching and you still have questions, maybe it's about ACT prep or maybe it's just about EPIC in general, I would love to hear from you. Someone from my team would love to hear from you. Our phone number and email address is in the chat. Please reach out. Our email is edt@epiccharterschools.org. We're happy to help you get the information that you need. So thanks so much, everybody, for being here today. Oh, wait, let's see right here. Oh, I have a comment. Okay, wait. I want to get this comment. Thank you, Lynette. Let's see what she said. I just have a comment. I work at the Oklahoma State Regents for Higher Education and administer several scholarship programs. We have 2 merit-based scholarships, Academic Scholars Program and the Regional University Baccalaureate Scholarship Program. That's a mouthful. That use ACT scores for entry. So both programs allow ACT super scoring. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Lynette, for sharing that. So see, like we said, I mean, the ACT super scoring, I don't know how I haven't heard that. That should have been on the news whenever it happened because that is a game changer for our high school students. And then they can use it to earn scholarship money to get them through college. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Lynette. Okay, thank you, everybody. Have a great day and a great rest of your week. We will see you next time. Bye.